All right, Commissioner Christie, February 18th, 2000, you're giving me advice and counsel on the floor of the Virginia House of Delegates. I've been taking your advice for more than a quarter of a century. Give me advice on the cost allocation for electric transmission lines that was referenced in your previous comments and in Order 1920.
First, you've never filed a malpractice claim, so I take that as the advice must have been.
I do note that we also both had a lot more hair.
At least, the advice was at least not actionable, and you're right about the hair. Let me address this thing about the cost allocation, because I've heard this repeatedly, the sound bites about, well, no one's going to be forced to pay for somebody else's policy. Clearly, Congressman Peters, in California, that's not the case. I don't know who said that. California is in your own ISO, and New York is in its own ISO. So the issue is not in the single state ISOs. No one's going to pay for California's policies or New York's because you're in a single state ISO. The problem is in the multi-state RTOs. And I spent 17 years as a Virginia regulator in PJM. And it absolutely will result in the socialization of public policy costs from one state to others. And here's how it will do that. First of all, Order 1000 said that you can cost allocate public policy projects separately from reliability projects. This rule says, no, you cannot. That is a major radical change from Order 1000. So it didn't build on Order 1000. It has a radical break from Order 1000. Now that was important because then what the rule says is we're going to throw public policy projects into the same bucket with reliability projects. And then we're going to mandate one cost allocation formula for all those projects. Now, the thing about the benefits and this soundbite that, well, no one's going to pay that for the benefits they don't get, there's no transparency. What the rule says is, first it mandates, and states have no ability to approve this or not approve it. It mandates a list of factors that have to be used in the planning of the projects that get into the regional plan where the money starts to flow. And among those factors that are mandated are state mandatory renewable portfolio standards. So it is mandating state public policies be used in the planning. On the other end of the process, it mandates benefits. And by mandating benefits, and again, states have no ability to say yes or no, or we don't agree, or with these mandated benefits. What the mandated benefits do is there's a disconnect between the factors and the benefits, which is going to have the inevitable result of spreading the costs of public policy projects, which are mandated at the front end in the planning factors. It is going to spread the costs across multiple states in the multi-state regions. Again, it's not a problem in California. It's not a problem in New York. It is the problem in the multi-state regions like PJM. And my position was, in the NOPR, if you want to include public policy projects with reliability projects in the same bucket, which Order 1000 did not require, then I think that the states, the policymakers or regulators ought to have the authority on the public policy part to say whether they agree with the cost allocation or not. Not to veto and not to say dictate a cost allocation, but the states ought to have the ability to say, okay, if we're going to throw these in one bucket, which Order 1000 did not do, then the states have got to have the ability to say, is this good for our consumers? This whole thing is about really, again, I get back to my original point. State regulators are the front line and the last line of defense for their consumers.
All right, and I get that, and you did a great job of explaining it, and I appreciate it. And let me break it into terms that I can understand. So when Dominion Power builds their plant in St. Paul, you're on the State Corporation Commission, that plant was built in APCO territory, Appalachian Power Territory, as opposed to Virginia Power Territory. The customers in Wise and Russell and in APCO territory in Southwest Virginia didn't have to pay for Richmond to have power, did they?
No, they didn't, because as a customer of Dominion, which I am and still am, we paid for the network upgrades to interconnect that plant. So, but the cost stayed within Virginia. That's the important point. And in PJM has been doing a good job of planning reliability lines for the entire 17 years I was there. Those reliability lines are cost allocated according to a formula across of all PJM, and everybody pays in PJM, and no one really complains across the whole 13-state region about the cost allocation for the reliability projects, because we are getting benefits from those. What this rule does, and it's a fundamental break from Order 1000 and the construct we had before, is it says, we're now going to make you pay for public policy projects because we're going to hide them in this bucket with the reliability projects, and then we're going to mandate an ex-ante, what's called an ex-ante cost allocation, and whether the states agree or not. And the states can even agree on a different formula, and the rule says the transmission provider can just ignore it. So I don't think that's fair, quite frankly. And again, if you separated out the public policy projects, which is the way it's been done in PJM for the last decade, and let me say one more thing. PJM is a good example, okay?
Got it. Time's up.
Okay, well.
Hopefully somebody else will give you another chance. I appreciate your wise counsel as always, and I yield back.